Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Soul-u-tions podcast. Today, I have some interesting statistics for you and a question to ask you. So I'll start with a question. What if the hardest thing you ever had to learn in your entire life was... ... I'll see you on the other side of the intro.
Einstein said, "We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them." Most everyone in the world is solving their problems the wrong way. Our problems come from our thinking, and we can solve them with our thinking. So, whether you're at your lowest, just trying to grow, or whether you are trying to sustain growth over your lifetime, join us as we push the boundaries of our current thinking and redefine how we find Soul-u-tions.
The hope and the strength and the love and the smiles and the laughter of friends and family. Add it up, you'll find no limit to the possibilities.
Okay. I hope that I left you hanging and you started thinking about, I wonder what the hardest thing would be to learn to do in life. And I know there are a lot of things we could put on that list. One year I ran a marathon because I thought it would be the hardest thing I would ever have to do in life. I was 50 and I wanted to do something big to mark the year. And I intentionally chose something that was going to be super hard. And the reason I wanted to do that is because Brennan had gotten through all of these bone marrow transplants, and I wanted to mark for him, just recognize that he had done something incredibly hard. And so I wanted to just show him how moved I was by his courage and his ability to show up in the face of just feeling so incredibly rotten day after day after day for year after year after year. And so I don't know. It was like an offering, I guess, to him from me. And so that was super hard. Of course, learning how to parent a child through childhood cancer, that was hard. Learning how to be a great caregiver was hard. But this is going to be a bit of a little twisty because I think this is something that's not just hard for one person, but it seems to be hard for women in general. All right. Here it is. I'm putting on my glasses to read this because I wrote it out. What if someone told you the hardest thing you will ever have to learn is how to slow down and be kind to yourself? How to stop pushing yourself so hard? How to be able to say no to your mother, to your father, to your husband, to your child, to your best friend in need without feeling guilty. Being able to say, no, I can't meet you today because ahead of time, not on the back end of things, you would realize that you were pushing yourself too hard. What if I told you that learning these specific skills would be the difference between you being healthy and getting sick? I mean, the reason why I wanted to share this with you today is twofold. One, there's a pretty remarkable statistic out there when it comes to autoimmune diseases. Women are more likely than men to be diagnosed with autoimmune diseases. And when I say more likely, 78.8% of autoimmune diseases occur in women. Now, the research is not flushed out on why this is, but people are starting to pose some hypotheses about it. And there's some research coming out of Stanford that suggests it has something to do with the second X chromosome. That may be promising. But there's another opinion floating out there, an opinion from Dr. Gabor Mate, and he is a psychotherapist. And he says that the reason why autoimmune diseases are so disproportionately presenting in women over men is because of this list of things that I just shared with you that women find harder to do than men. It's a gender generalization, I know, but historically, and we've shared this before, that women are socialized to be likable and men are socialized for power. And how this difference shows up in your day-to-day life is, I was just talking to a client about this yesterday. She has just recently moved in with her longtime boyfriend. And so now, of course, they're going through all of the, the conversational bumps and things that you do as you're just living together and communicating together. And so this is where we start to just kind of bump up against our communication skill set and how there's so much to develop for each of us. And still me, including at 31 years of marriage and almost 58 years old, I'm still working on these skills. But we talked about the fact, like, she's nervous to bring up certain topics with her boyfriend. And in sharing the back and forth, it was interesting because I had this like little bookmark thing where I'm like, I wonder if the real reason why it's hard for you, or that you are, thinking a lot about how do I bring this topic up with my boyfriend, is because of the unseen portion, that unseen next sentence in her head, which is, I don't know how to bring this up to him in a way that will ensure that he still likes me. And when I asked her that, she was like, she recognized it immediately. She recognized the unconscious nature of that little second clause that's unsaid. And then she was sharing some conversation with her boyfriend from over the holidays. And it was fun because she just matter-of-factly reported something that he said to her, and that just came out so easily for him. And it was the perfect, other side of the coin conversation, because I'm like, oh, he said, hey, mom and dad want to know why you, you don't seem to be very relaxed around them. And he just said it. I was like, tell me how. She didn't bother her that he said it at all. And I said, it didn't bother you that he said it. But if you had to say that same thing to him, would you run into this inner conflict again? And she goes, yes. And I said, this is evidence of this theorem that the reason why it's easier for him to bring these types of topics up with you is because he doesn't have that second clause in his head. He doesn't have oh, how am I going to bring this up with my girlfriend? and do it in such a way that it's not going to hurt her feelings, or she's going to still like me. Like, that's what I mean when I say women are socialized to be likable and men are socialized for power. It impacts our day-to-day lives in ways that we don't notice until we pull the veil back. Or the image that just came to mind, I don't know about y'all, but when I was little, I loved on road trips, we would get these books of things, and they had like mysteries and clues, and you had this special marker and you would highlight it, and all of a sudden that marker would make visible the invisible words underneath it. So that's what I'm trying to do with this conversation, is make visible some of these invisible things that are getting in our way of communicating with a sense of ease. And if I hope I'm just not killing his name here, but if Dr. I'm just going to call him Dr. Gabe. If Dr. Gabe is right, this is like impacting us so much, this unconscious, invisible socialization and internalization of needing to be liked is impacting women to such a degree that 78.8% of autoimmune diseases are showing up in women. So what that tells me is that, going back to these questions, these skill sets, the ability to learn how to slow down and be kind to yourself, to stop pushing yourself so hard, to be able to say no without feeling guilty. The ability to do these things, to be able to say what's on our heart, what's on our mind, to communicate freely, freed from the concern that it might impact our likability. This could be one of the most important skill sets that you ever learn. And I think it is one of the hardest things that we have to learn, not from the standpoint of some of those other examples that I shared with you in the beginning of the podcast, like running a marathon and facing the unthinkable. But the hardest thing you ever have to learn how to do, because of all of the unlearning that you have to do and actively practice in order to learn how to communicate a little more freely with people, learn how not to worry about bringing your likability into the equation. And I hope you can hear, even in just me bringing this up, like the kind of ridiculousness of the fact that our likability has to be at such the forefront of our consideration when we have conversations and interact with, our partners whom we love and whom we know love us, our parents who we love and who we know love us, our kids, and our best friends. So I have an idea about how to, make it not so hard to learn these things. So this is just a tool about gamifying things. Like if you're learning a new game and you're interacting with the game, that makes things more fun. I think that if we can insert some sense of play and some sense of fun in this learning how to, be kind to yourself, not push yourself so hard and say no to yourself. If we can just insert a little fun in here, that, it might be easier and we might lean into it a little bit more. So I was talking to a group of women at a garden club today, and I was sharing with them how these issues that are women's issues are so important. And I also shared with them, this is a quote from the Dalai Lama, and it was at I think it was the Vancouver Peace Summit in 2009, where he said that the world will be saved by the Western woman. I remember hearing that quote and just thinking, that's a pretty wild statement. I mean, there's a little part of me that felt good. It's like, oh, the Dalai Lama thinks that like Western women are going to change the world. But I was also thinking, how does this happen? What is the power that Western women have that is so timely in the world today? And I think if we can, think about this topic and this internalization, and that this is a time in human history that we can shift this internalization, shift this socialization, and kind of peel back some of the things that are holding us back, and not just holding us back, but making us sick. Like we could have an active influence in evolving us beyond this idea of needing to be liked coming into play all the time. So here's the game. I'm going to challenge you to just, pull this out, talk about it with your girlfriends over lunch, share this episode with someone that you want to be your buddy on this, right? Like send it in the group text, just copy and paste, just go straight. If you go to whether you're listening in Spotify, whether you're listening in Apple, or whether you're listening and watching on YouTube, there is a share button. YouTube has this little arrow and you can push it and get the link. And on Spotify, it has a little share icon. And then in Apple, it's just these 3 dots in the top right corner of the podcast. And you just hit that and then it'll give you an opportunity to share the episode. So super easy. Like right now, you can keep listening to me and hit the share button and just send it to one of your female friend group texts and say, hey, listen to this episode and let's see if we can do this for one another this year. Let's see what would happen. Let's see how our lives would change. Let's see if we would feel better and if we can just root for one another to stay healthy. Okay, so here's the thing. When you have a friend who says, I don't know if I can do that. I really, really am torn. I really, really want to do that thing with you, but I have XYZ that I've already committed to. When your friend is saying that, I want you to hear, the highlighted thing that she's not saying, which is, I don't want to hurt your feelings. I don't want you to stop liking me if I say no. All right? And I want you in response to say, hey, we're not doing that anymore. I love you. I like you. You're my friend. And you can tell me no. It is not going to disappoint me. In fact, I'm going to high five you because I'm proud of you for looking after your own health. And I want you to be healthy. Okay. Think about that. Think about how much freer you will be to just enjoy your relationships when you feel free to be able to say no and not worry if you've disappointed anybody, to not worry if someone's keeping a score, right? To not worry about, being likable or not likable, and to not feel guilty about it. I think this is what I was sharing with this group of women, and this ties into the Dalai Lama quote, like the Western world, civilization saved by the Western woman. I think what we have the opportunity to uniquely do as women is to begin to give permission to one another to just be human and to not continue this insane feeling of internalized pressure to do all the things and to do them to an incredible standard. I was listening to another podcast, and this was posted in the Soul-u-tions Labs forum actually just today. This is a Kelly Corrigan podcast, and she's interviewing the lazy genius. The lazy genius, her entire raison d'etre in her brand is exactly what we're talking about in this episode today. Women giving themselves permission to back off of like this crazy standard of perfectionism. And she said, even the highest performance Olympic athlete, there is a time and a place to push yourself to this exceptional standard. The Olympic trials and the Olympic finals, and everything you do in connection with practicing and perfecting that skill set. But you don't bring that same standard to what's for dinner tonight. You can't. You'll burn out. And I think that's what's being lost here for women is this unseen pushing of ourselves to this crazy standard, not just in this one aspect of our lives, but in every single aspect of our lives. And so I do want to challenge you to say, hey, yeah, the standard for dinner on a Tuesday night, what is that? Like, what is good enough for dinner on a Tuesday night? Taco Tuesday, going through the drive-thru at Taco Bell, having the groceries already purchased, going to the grocery store that night. I mean, what's the standard? You just have something to eat. It doesn't have to involve a Michelin star that night. Just give yourself a little bit of breathing room here to just be human and to be able to enjoy things that are just good enough. Embrace your inner lazy genius. And in the process of it, like, declare that your health, your body, it's important to you, and begin to see that when you encroach upon, your time and your health and your energy, when you can't say no to other people without feeling guilty, you're encroaching into things that are going to take away from something else in your life. One last thing that I'll share with you, then this was an interesting thing that came up in the Soul-u-tions Labs, is that one of our newer members does have an autoimmune disease. And when we were doing some coaching, and this exact topic came up, which is the other reason I wanted to share it with y'all on the podcast. And one of our members was just feeling such a sense of urgency in a project that hasn't been completed. Had driven a U-Haul with her husband to go pick up the daughter stuff out of a storage unit to then, drop off at her daughter's and then put all the other stuff in their guest room. Y'all, I am sorry. My brain today, you might have to listen to this one on 2 times. But anyway, she was just pushing herself to the fact that that room, that she hadn't been able to go through all the boxes and unpack them and send the things, to Goodwill that needed to be sent to Goodwill, and placing all the things that needed to be placed like that they were placed. She was like, it's just driving me crazy that I am living in limbo and that I can't get this done. And it was to the point that she hadn't showered that morning, that she had canceled her workout with her trainer that morning, and then she had even rescheduled a client. These are the clues. These are the clues that you are giving away too much of your energy, that you are pushing yourself too hard. If you're skipping your shower, if you are skipping your workout, right? If you're canceling those things in order to do something else, that is a red flag and a sign that you are pushing yourself to some crazy Olympic athlete level standard in a non-Olympic competition area of your life. Finding out that, these are non-negotiables for me, and figuring out the amount of time that you have to do stuff in. And if you can't get it done yourself, asking for help. So this is what our friend shared, who does have an autoimmune disease. And she said, I have to take these things into account every single day of my life. Like, I have to be so aware of my energy. And when she hasn't been, she's ended up in these relapse situations that have taken months and weeks of recuperation to get back to a place of just every day dealing with her autoimmune disease. And so she's like, please, please, please listen and start doing this on a proactive level before you get sick or before you get to the point where you can't do it at that level anymore. So this is why I think it's so important and why I wanted to share this topic with you today. I think it's really a matter, a women's health issue. This is your health issue. This is the health issue of someone in your life whom you love. So for all my fellas out there, I want you to take away from this that some things are harder for the woman you love in your life to do that seem like super easy to you because of this different socialization that they have experienced and internalized, right? This desire to be likable, and that it drives them unconsciously and in default, that this is just their default level. So help them, right? You want them to be healthy. And we know, as our friend who was in class this week said, listen, when I'm on a tear like this, the dog is in the crate. My husband's like, I think I got an out-of-town work job. She's like, nobody wants to be around me because I'm just a crazy lunatic. So, we don't want to keep being crazy lunatics. And I think that, the real problem is something that is deeper and more in the unconscious and subconscious level than what we all see. You are not crazy. You have just internalized a lot of messaging, and these behavioral patterns are revealing the extent to which you've absorbed that socialization. And these statistics are telling us that it is a big deal, and it's something to pay attention to before you get sick. Well, that's all I have for you today. I really wish you the best of health and the best of happiness. And I hope that you will take me up on this challenge. If you didn't already forward this to a friend group, please do it right now. And I want to hear stories. Are you giving one another high fives? Are you giving each other points for saying no? And are you checking in with your friends who don't look like they've had a shower in several days? And tell them, remind them, take something else off your plate. It's okay to say no. You're still going to be loved and liked in the world. Until next time, have a good one.
'Cause I ain't done living the life I'm meant to lead. And I ain't done loving the ones who cared for me. The hope and the the strength and the love and the smiles and the laughter of friends and family. Add it up, you'll find no limit to the possibilities. The left and the right and some faith in the fight, and your courage is all